Hi everyone, Josh Gorelick here from Arctic Leaf, bringing another OnTap series. So if this is your first OnTap, it's kind of our play on a webinar. We don't like the word webinar, but we talk more around like just holistic, having a fun conversation. And part of OnTap is making sure that you have a beverage. So whatever beverage it is, it could be water, coffee, alcohol, no one's judging, right? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock somewhere. But really the objective on tap is to kind of bring some really amazing partners on, and we get to talk about some really cool ideas and different topics that are kind of going on in the industry. And the first one I'm excited to really talk about today is data science, right? Data science and customer lifetime value. And so if for those of you who don't know me, I'm Josh. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Arctic Leaf. We are a design and development and implementation agency for mid-market and enterprise e-commerce brands. And on the call with me, I have Natalie Pucucco, who is our creative director, amazing designer and phenomenal eye. And then last but not least, Lee, chief data analyst from Tadpull. So super excited to welcome you on today's call and just to talk everything data science and customer lifetime value. So Lee, do you want to just quickly say hello and maybe just inform everyone what is Tadpull and what do you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. This is going to be a really fun conversation. I've been looking forward to it. So thanks for letting, I'm excited to collaborate and participate in this conversation. My name is Natalie Cook. I'm the co-founder and chief data officer at Tadpull. What Tadpull is we really help merchants and mid-market companies collect, analyze, and understand their data so then they can act on it. And so really the core objective is that to help them grow their business. And so we do that by helping them grow the traffic to their websites and then help that traffic convert on the website, which is where we love working with excellent partners like Arctic Leaf that can help us design those experiences to help our merchants and our clients achieve those goals. So that's a little bit about Tadpull.
Amazing. They do a whole lot more than what Lee just said, by the way. So, so very cool company. Definitely check them out. So what are we going to talk about today, right? We talked a little bit about data science, right? So like what types of data are we trying to capture? How do we use that data in design? And that's why Natalie is here, who drives the direction of our creative team. How UX experiences add to customer lifetime value, right? And then bringing that data into design. It's super important that it's, you're not just making decisions blindly, you're actually using some of this data that you're capturing to leverage it to ultimately convert into higher sales, a bigger ROI, and then ultimately higher customer lifetime value. And then obviously there's been a lot of changes in data. I'm not even going to pretend to be an expert. That's why Lee is here. And what is the kind of the future of zero-party data, and then kind of predicting future customer lifetime value. But I think the first thing we should kind of set ourselves off is like, what is data, right? What are the different types of data? So we've got a little chart together. We've all talked about zero party, first party, third party, second party. So here's a little chart to just kind of talk a little about. I'm actually going to ask Lee, because as the data scientist, zero party data, right? What is zero party data? We keep hearing about it. A lot of people look at it as a big buzzword. Tell us what it's all about.
Absolutely. So really zero-party data is anything that your customer is knowingly and willingly providing to you as the company. And so there should be no expectation of anonymity. There should be no expectation of aggregation from the client side. It's just something that they're trusting you with, ideally to personalize their experience and make it a little bit better so you can offer them relevant products, relevant services, and make sure that you're meeting them where they are. And so I guess that's the answer to, kind of what is zero-party data. I'm going to let you pick it back up there, and then
so zero-party data is the biggest thing, right? Is, back in the day, we would get all this third-party data and second-party data, really easy to capture information, follow them along on the internet, see what their interests are. Well, those glory days are over. So now we have to kind of come up with creative ways to actually ask our customers for this particular data, and getting authority to use this data to make better decisions. So rather than going into every single category, first party, second, this is going to be up on our blog. We're going to share this. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but I kind of want to get into the meat of things. And there's just a ton that we want to kind of cover. So I don't want to get into the meat on what is first, second, third, or fourth. I think there's a lot of articles and things out there that you can definitely research. So the next big question is, how is data used in design, right?
Yeah.
We have Google Analytics. We have all these different types of these data capturing platforms. Most people probably get all this data and they're just sitting there like, oh my God, what do I do with this? Right? What do I do? How do I do? We get that overwhelming feeling, the anxiety starts kicking in. It's usually what happens when you collect all this data and you don't know what to do with. So Lee, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about the holistic relationship between data and design, and just kind of like the full circle of like, okay, I capture this data, what do I do with it? And then Natalie will kind of talk a little about some of the UX design and strategy in the life cycle of it.
Perfect. I think I just want to emphasize a couple of things. So why is it so critical right now? And why is this conversation happening? I think really there is, in the backdrop of the industry, there's new privacy regulations. Consumers are behaving a little bit differently. They're a lot more aware of privacy and their regulations and where, how much data is available on them. We're seeing new walled gardens pop up. I mean, everybody is they have their own little window into it and people aren't sharing as broadly. And so we just have less access. So what does that mean? It means, ad clicks cost a lot more than they used to. There's a lot of implications in terms of understanding that holistic picture of the customer journey. And so really that's what's driving a lot of this understanding, and really zero and first party data are kind of two core areas where we specialize. So I think that's, just the backdrop is important to keep in mind, just because I think that it's really because of all these walled gardens, it's shifted the onus of owning and collecting data onto those individual merchants, which is very different than it used to be. And so we've just seen a big sea change, and our industry is still kind of upended. We're finding our way through everything. And I think that's where we, rely on technology partners like Arctic Leaf, like Tadpull, to really help guide us along this path and journey. And so really when you look at this holistic picture, the only thing that's missing in this, like we have our business objective, but aligning that business objective with what the customer is trying to solve. What is that end user's need? And so when we think about, our business objective, generally most of us are making products or services to meet the needs of somebody that's out there in the ether on the other end of the internet that is an actual individual. And so what does that person need? What are they trying to accomplish? And that's really why we want to capture data, so we can better serve that individual. And so really, when we look at e-commerce data, we really think about it in three buckets. And so that it's the customer data, the product data that they purchase, and the campaigns that bring them to the website. And so when we're talking about customer data, those are some of the categories of data that we're talking about. And then we watch their behavior when they come to our website. It's no different than going into a grocery store, and it would be weird if you walked into or a department store and nobody asked you, can I help you find anything? Whereas if they come into our web store, we want to help them find what they're looking for. So basically, that's how we're going to capture that data. And then we're going to apply some really creative strategies with, UX and design strategies. And Natalie was going to speak to that a lot better than I could. But then it kind of is this circular, because you want to bring those people back. You want to give them a great experience. You want to capture data on that experience. And then you want to use that to kind of spin this cycle. And it really is a mutually reinforcing and beneficial process for the company and the customer.
No, I completely agree with you. And it's definitely leveraging data to improve a better buying experience is ultimately what we're trying to get at. So Natalie, like I kind of pose the question to you is, how does the role of a UX designer take advantage of all this possible personalization, right? You have all this amazing data. What do you do with it?
Yeah, so
loaded question, right?
Yeah, it's a big question, but essentially, essentially up till this point as well, I want to just kind of take a step back here. We've Arctic Leaf has typically worked with like first, second, or third party data because we've been relying on our merchants being the ones, if they want to actually reach out directly to their customers. But we have been kind of hands off in that regard up until very recently, kind of leaving that in the hands of the clients. And also because, as Lee said, there was so much opportunity beforehand that you could just like get data on different types of customers that you didn't really like need to bother. But in terms of like kind of best practices and the ethos of building that long-term relationship with your customer, it makes more sense to be actually building that relationship and just, revolutionary idea, ask the customer what they want, right? Like, it doesn't have to be difficult. You can just purely get them to give you that information. The change has been that now that we are actually asking customers for this data up front, we are able to help clients to actually make much better strategies with their branding. And rather than being like, well, let's try a UX and then look at Hotjar user recordings and see, did anybody actually respond or go down that user journey in the way that we thought that they would? Or, and then if not, okay, well, what do we do now? Let's iterate, let's try something different. But instead what we're trying to do is we're trying to actually give people an option to tell us what they want instead, and to build out really solid user personas and user journeys as well. So, customer A enters the website at the homepage and they have a very traditional shopping experience. They're a browser, they go through. So that means that instead of just going directly to the search bar and typing in, I know exactly what I want, that's one user. And then the other user is, I'm going to browse around, click on a bunch of stuff, and then I'm going to purchase something. And it's like the what we need to do is we need to identify how many people fit in those different buckets out of the customers, and then support those journeys as best we can in the most economical way. So if most of your customers are browsers, then you don't need to necessarily make a super robust search as your very first thing to do, right? You want to make sure that it's really visual and that it's mobile friendly, so someone can, scroll, tap, because that's how they're already shopping on your site. If they, but if it's the other way around, you need to make sure you're supporting that. So yeah, essentially, like there's I don't know if I really answered your question there, Josh, but
no, that's great. The whole point of this conversation is that while we set a direction that we want to go in, it's going to go into a variety of different tangents, and that's why I'm here, is to basically try to go back. I'm usually the one who takes us off on different tangents, so it's a little bit of an oxymoronic kind of situation that I'm in. But so we just talked about some data capture. So we talked about, we have to turn on some events, we have to capture this data. What does that look like, right?
Absolutely. It comes back to the categories of data that you talked about in that first slide about, there's zero party, first party, second party, third party. And I think really what we're talking about for the purpose of today, I would say, is really that first party data, something you observe directly that the customer does on the website, and then zero party, what you ask or what they provide to you through any variety of methods. I think, I want to be crystal clear about one thing is, if you're going to ask your users for data about themselves and they share it with you, you had better act on it, because that is one way to frustrate people. When you say, okay, I understand you, I see you, customer, and then you send them a blanket email, a blast email that, sells them a product that they just purchased. And so there's a lot of ways that you can kind of frustrate users. And so I think being a little bit thoughtful about how you approach it, and, if you're going to ask for the data, it is important that we have, a plan and, and a strategy to act on that data. And whether it's user experience, or whether it's through email or paid channels or other, ways to interact with the customer, I think that's something that I really want to emphasize, is just that ability to think through and act before you ask, have the ability to. I think when it comes to capturing data, asking your customers, just being really thoughtful and respectful about who, what, when, where, and how you're going to reach out to them and ask them for any information. It could be through, polls, preference centers, quizzes, surveys, pop-up modals. There's a variety of methods to capture customer data. And so just like really lining up, what is the objective? What are we trying to do? How are we trying to help this customer collect the right data, and then be thoughtful about the right channel to do that. And then making sure that it is really unique to the brand, ideally. Not all brands. I mean, if I'm shopping for a backpack or something and they're asking me for my household income, that's going to make me very uncomfortable, right? I need them to ask things that are relevant. So they are asking me things like, hey, is this a day pack? Is this a backpacking? How many nights? Like, what are those relevant things that are going to help me accomplish my backpacking objective?
No, I think that hits the nail on the head perfectly. Like, how many times do we see a company's like, hey, refer a friend, they get $10. And it's like, I've never purchased from you before. It's the first time I've ever experienced your brand. Why am I referring anyone? Right? It's kind of almost like, it's networking. Everyone always says like, Josh, you're great in a room. How do you always do that? I'm like, because I ask questions and I listen. it's actually not rocket science, guys. Like people like product-led growth, like ask your customers questions, they'll tell you exactly what they want, and it's your job then to deliver on it, right? It's not rocket science, right? So so now that we talked a little bit about that, like, so I'm going to ask Natalie this. So how do we actually use user experience to add to customer lifetime value, right? So we have experimental design, we have data-driven design. What are the differences? I know we have some examples we're going to kind of show a little bit as well. So Natalie, why don't you kind of just give us a little bit of an overview on how, what you do every day with your UX team adds to a customer lifetime value?
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing is that, it's you've got UX driven design, which can sound kind of dry, because especially if you're a lifestyle brand, for example, and you're like, well, I just know that I have a really specific aesthetic that I'm trying to go for that will vibe with my customers. Like, I totally get that. And that would be more of an experiential type of design. So, where you're not really focusing on UX necessarily, you're focusing on brand. But like, I think both can kind of play together. So yeah, just to preface all of that. So if we're taking the, what we're actually doing for the development of a site, and there's certain things that you have to have in place. So you have to have a homepage, product page, all of that on your e-commerce site. Not all of those things across different experiences need to be exactly the same. So out of the box, if you're on Shopify, for example, you get like a very basic setup, and that's going to work great for most cases, but you're going to want to tailor it to your brand. Now, that's where you take the magic, which is you got that information directly from your customers, and you now know that, like, for example, with the backpack situation, that they need to be able to filter by day pack or week, length of time, because that's different to size of backpack, because you could just have it that 40 liters, 50 liters. Like, I don't understand how to measure.
I was gonna say, I don't know what liters in backpacks are. Like, can I fit a laptop and a bunch of that's what I want to know.
Exactly. Yeah. So then that's it. So what we're doing with UX and data-driven design is it's not actually dry. It's not boring. It is it's literally the process of taking what the customer told you, taking the kind of bare bones of your site and the tools that you have available, and kind of making adjustments so that it's more human-centered, so that it's not just and if we think, obviously, I know that it's a whole other topic, but if we think about everything that's going on with the rise of AI and text-based prompting, it's all about natural language, and we're trying always to get to the closest as possible to where the customer intuitively can find exactly what they're looking for. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the idea of invisible design. That would be, I would say, the ideal data-driven design is where it's so good that you don't even really notice it. You're just like, oh, I got to my product I wanted very quickly, and it was great. I didn't even have to think about anything. Like, that's a well-designed site. On the other kind of side of that, instead of it being put in the customer right at the center and making it like an active experience of I'm going through, I'm searching for products, and I have the agency to find exactly what I'm looking for. The other side of that is an experiential design. That is where the customer is coming to whatever page or landing page, anything like that, and they are being given an experience. So it's more passive. So it's the difference, I guess, between actively searching through on YouTube to find a video to watch, or endlessly watching through TikToks where they kind of scroll for you, right? That, I would say, is a good way.
You realize that TikTok is using your data to then modify the algorithm to give you more content to keep you.
Oh yeah, to keep you there forever.
So there's definitely even on the experiential design, there's probably some data that is being leveraged to give you this immersive experience, right?
Oh, 100%. And it should be, and it should, you've even got tools like Nosto, that we're implementing for one of our merchants at the moment, that it's using data to personalize the product recommendations to you. So like, especially like if it's a site that you always go back to, like, if you're a shopaholic and you're always going on a certain shoe site, then it will start to give you the exact recommendations. So like the experiential side of it 100% is still data driven. It's just the idea behind it is that it's a passive experience where you are saying, hello customer, let me give you an experience that you are now going to be like, you're going to remember this. It's memorable. It gives you a taste of that brand. And it's, all of those things that lifestyle brands are really looking for, which is being really memorable. And that's important for like lifetime value, because it's really, if you don't, it's like all the pieces have to fit together. If you have your email marketing set up, even if your brand is not very memorable, if you've captured the data correctly, then you can keep reminding people you exist. But if you don't have that piece together, then, and your brand is really memorable and, they create an experience, then they're more likely to recognize you as you come back. And even it could be years later and like, they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember I got that really great backpack. It was expensive, but it worked great. So hopefully that makes sense. Do you have any questions, Josh or Lee, or like?
Oh, Lee, do you have anything to add to that, Lee?
I just have a couple of quick comments because I think really at Tadpull, we have a software product that helps us really tie all those, touch points together and make sure that we're really tailoring to that product. And then our, through email or other things. And so one of the things you were talking about is like, you don't want to break that spell. Once you say, okay, customer, I know that you are, size medium and the last product you purchased was in blue, for example, you want to personalize, but you don't want to pigeonhole, right? And so we've run some tests where we say, okay, here's all the products that we have in your size and in your color, and they'll come back and browse. We see astronomical click-through rates and like from those emails. I think, it's generally a smaller list size, but we've seen, in the 60s, people really, it resonates when you personalize something like 60% click-through rate, which is very rare in email. And so again, it's a smaller list size, but it's a really high click-through rate. These are a very engaged audience. And we've also seen it increase our average order value by like 42%, just because you personalize that, you took the time to really understand that customer and not break that spell about like, everything from on the site to what they're interested in, all the way through to the interactions that they have with your brand.
Yeah, I think
that's mad.
Those metrics are nuts. Like they're crazy.
So just so that I'm understanding, so what you're doing is you're gathering the data that from their shopping experience, and then you are you're tagging them in whatever email platform or through your software, and then able to set up automated. Is it automated, the messages that then get sent through?
Yeah, some of them can be automated over time. And a lot of times if we're just experimenting, we'll run a test and just kind of make sure that it works, make sure that it looks good. And then I think it also depends on the inventory status of, what the company has, because I think a lot of times like when you run into out of stock issues, you don't want to, you want to make sure that you have a good stock on the things that person might be interested in. And so that's really how we've leveraged it, particularly in the pandemic, where it was like, there was limited stock. So sending
toilet paper.
Yeah, we didn't have any toilet paper clients, I think, but it would have been
and people were literally like buying a pallet. Like this, we have a client that sells toilet paper industrial, like for commercial purposes, and people were buying a pallet at a time of worth of toilet paper, asking them to be delivered at their driveway. Like it was chaos, complete craziness. So sorry to pay you off.
Not at all. But I think it really is kind of, it's taking that holistic perspective of like the company and the customer's needs, aligning those two things up and making sure, okay, we have stock on this. Let's send this, Natalie, we're size 10. Let's make sure that we say, here's all the things we do have in size 10 if we're low on stock for certain things. And so there's just a lot of strategic ways you can, optimize that user experience.
Yeah. Well, personalization is great, but at the same, I think me personally, I have a love-hate relationship with technology, right? Like I see the evolution, the need, the desire for technology, but then at the same time, like, whoa, can we pump the brakes here a little bit? Like, why do you have that much information on me? I didn't give you that, right? But at the same time, I still want a personalized shopping experience. So it's like this completely push and pull. Like we're constantly like like, give me the experience I want, but don't steal my data and you can't have it. And, it's this constant battle, right? And it's trying to find that happy medium, which is right. But because again, we all want that personalized experience. We all want to feel like we're going to a store, say, wow, this brand really knows who I am, right? It's like serving me the content that I'm looking for. But why do you have
consent is so important? Like you're saying, people are very sensitive. We call it we often say non-creepy personalization. Because
I like it. It's good.
Because we don't and that consent piece, people need to know what information you have on them. They need to know that you're using it to offer them a better experience. And if it, like you said, if it makes you uncomfortable, it's probably a little bit of a misstep.
Yeah. So moving things along, because we have still a lot to cover. So I know, Natalie, you had an example of what you wanted to kind of show.
I did.
Bringing design and data together. So this is one of our clients, Arctic Leaf's clients, and we actually had her on the show OnTap series about several months ago, talking about her new brand called the Warrior Project. So Brianna Caitlin Fitness was the original brand. She's an Instagram influencer talking all about fitness and health, and has created an amazing model. Like really, like it's phenomenal. But I'll let Natalie just you have 2 minutes to talk about it, because we got to keep it going. So.
Okay, cool. So Brianna Caitlin, like everyone on the team loved working on this project, and definitely encourage you to check it out. So it's the Warrior Project.fit. So basically, the whole point of this is that we brought together experiential and data-driven design, because she was like, I don't like how a bunch of the apps work where you like log your fitness and it's really isolating, and like there was like a really clear user story, and because she's an influencer, she's in constant communication with like her base. So she has all of this great data and had a really clear idea of like what the end customer needs for this membership. So every month there's a challenge, and like you follow through, and you're going through with Brianna every single month, and following and ticking everything off. And this was all built on Shopify, but then we made like this headless portion. And so on the front end, on that homepage, when it loops back around, it's like supposed to be in your face. It's supposed to be like really visual, and give you that experience of Brianna. Like there's photography on there of her, and she's just showing her personality completely, like with like all like the muscle pictures and stuff, and it's super cool. And it really, it leaves an impression. But then once you get through to being in the actual side of it, where you're inside the dashboard, it's the UX is really supposed to be functional, and it's we're showing it on a desktop here, but like it was geared towards mobile, because most people, when they're at the gym and stuff, they're using this type of app as they are actually, and we want them ticking off and working through and adding their stats as they go. So it had to be really, really user friendly, and I imagine that this will change and adapt over time as we get more and more feedback from her customers. But I wanted to just note, like, you don't have to choose one or the other. Basically, you don't have to choose like really dry kind of like, scientific forms of UX flows and all of that. And then you don't have to just have like a crazy visual website. Like, the sweet spot is to try and get both together.
Yeah. Well, I think what Brianna did on this particular one, I mean, first of all, she's got a ton of personality. She's actually, like, I think the last year has been driving around the country in a van, just taking videos and kind of engaging with her audience. And the data that she's going to be able to capture is fantastic, right? Like, she can literally ask her customer base and they will tell her what they want and what they need, right? And that's the idea for zero party data, really, right? So love the site, by the way, like super happy with it. Like, as the co-founder of the business, like every once in a while, like I don't see all this stuff that kind of comes across. I don't actually see a lot of things until like it's like, ooh, we just launched this site. I'm like, wow, we did that, right? So it's kind of like that. It's like your baby's growing up, right? It's like, oh, they put on they took the training wheels off, right, of the bicycle. So moving right along, I wanted to kind of ask Lee to talk a little about customer lifetime value. Lee's been kind enough to provide this really interesting graph. I would love for you to explain it to me because I have no idea what's going on here. So please help me understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, we're part academic, part industry at Tadpull, I think. And so we definitely like to have both the quantitative and the qualitative methods. And I love the example you guys just gave because it does that, when she's talking to her users and they're telling her what questions do they have, she's gathering all that zero-party data. And then on the backside, she can track that and kind of look at ways that they're engaging and is what they're asking for actually resonating, and are they doing it, acting on it, engaging with it? And then she can tweak and pivot. And so I think it's a really beautiful example, and very powerful too, because who doesn't want to live a little bit more fit?
Yeah.
So as it relates to this is a customer lifetime value graph. So this is really, I have to credit, Dr. Peter Fader teaches at the Wharton School of Business at University of Pennsylvania. And so this is really, his customer lifetime value model. It's really funny because you look at that, the P alive means probability alive. And so it actually stems from the medical industry. And so it's a very, they call it a survival function. So that's kind of
really interesting. I love it.
The origin of it, but we call it probability active typically instead of alive, because we like to think about all of our customers as being alive. So basically what you're seeing here is those green dashed lines are actual purchases. And then the blue kind of maps that customer experience. Like they make a purchase and then they kind of tend to fall off. And so those customers are always trying to become inactive. And then there's another purchase and it bounces them back up. And so you kind of see that probability of their activity it comes back up when they make a purchase and then it starts to fall off again. And so it just kind of reinforces the point of you've got to stay top of mind. And so you want to leverage all the tools at your disposal to do that. I think whether it's interesting content you're posting organically on social, or whether it's paid ad campaigns or email or all those different touch points. And that's why it's really important to always stay top of mind. There's kind of a counterintuitive thing about customer lifetime value is, when you think if a customer is 100% likelihood of being active, they're ready to make a purchase. And it's actually not really true. It generally means they've just made a purchase and they probably just need some product education. And so kind of, sending them some post-purchase flows about, how to take care of their product, what, information is relevant to them at that point, how can they go enjoy that activity more? And so just really thinking through that whole journey is really a piece of this. And so this is just kind of a quick visualization into, the kind of the data that drives some of the data science models that we really deploy to help derive some better insights so we can meet the customer where they are and ideally meet their needs.
No, that's really interesting. And it's you talk about having all these different channels of communication, and there's no right or wrong answer. There is and there isn't, but in theory, you want to be leveraging every single one of these channels: email, SMS, push notifications, media buying, blogging, video, all the stuff, right? Because you never know what's going to resonate with a different buyer. As Natalie mentioned earlier, there's a whole bunch of different buyer personas. No one buys, I walk into a store, I'm A to B, right? or A to Z, right? Mm-hmm. My wife walks in and it's A, C, B, D, R, right? And then she gets to Z, right? So we're very different buyers. So you have to really kind of tailor your outbound to all these different personas. So kind of moving right along. So I think that graph was really interesting. Thank you for explaining it, because I was looking at it, I was I don't understand what's going on with this. And there was just a couple of really cool stats I wanted to just mention on there as well, just from a buying perspective. I think that 92% are more likely to buy from a direct referral. So really, really powerful. Also why something like network marketing does really, really well in the down market. And then this was a really interesting stats Katie shared with me. So what you're actually seeing is that a lot of brands are moving away from larger influencers, and because it's just kind of this pray and spray approach, right? You're just kind of hoping you're going to potentially land someone as a customer, whereas 82% are more likely to buy from a micro influencer. So someone who's got someone 5 to 10,000 or 20,000 people on their list, or someone like Brianna Caitlin. Why she does so well is because she's a micro influencer and she can really captivate her audience and is talking about something very key and very specific. But so talking about items that are key and specific, if we had an opportunity to ask our customers anything, what would they be? What would you ask them, Lee?
I mean, I think part of that's where it does come back to your brand. What does your brand do? And what's going to help you better serve that customer? I think that there's a variety of ways. There's some stats out there about, data that customers are most likely to share. And that involves things like, location and not necessarily age, but gender, just kind of depending on what your brand is. I think with the worry example, I don't want to go too deep, but I've seen some really great examples of like Pros. It's a product that, it's like a custom shampoo that they make, right? And that one, it's really interesting because the questions that they're asking are really, it kind of serves double duty. One is it helps them formulate a product specific to that individual user. Like based on your age, your hair has certain qualities. Based on your region, you might have harder water. And so they ask a lot of questions. I mean, I bet it's 20 to 30 questions that they ask. And then
it was quite extensive. So
it was quite extensive. And then I think the other part, it's informing their product. And it's also like, what a marketing dream. I mean, to have all that data about customers and be able to present back information about like based on the hair length, based on their hairs, what kind of styling might they do? I think that there's a lot of really interesting things. So I don't want to go because you guys have given such a great example, but it really does come back to, what do you want to know and what is that brand? And then also like, how do you blend, what they tell you with what you can absorb and their purchase history so that you're really meeting them where they are?
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. And it's exactly that is ask your customers, right? Like they for those customers that want to engage in your brand, they're going to give you that information, right?
Yeah.
So Natalie, like if we can ask you to pose you the same question, if you can ask our customers, and you do, and I know we're kind of coming up on time here. But if you can ask just one question to our customers or our clients' customers, what would that be? Like, what would,
It would be, why did you come to this site today? Right. And getting to the root of what problem they're trying to solve. Or what the motivation was behind it. Because if you can understand the initial motivation, you can take a few psychological steps backwards and and from there you can figure out so much, like, should your brand be trying to be like a really fun experience, or does it need to be no frills, get straight to the point, like, and that then would determine the entire UX over and above even just like, who do you like shop, like, where do you live? Like, again, though, it does depend on the type of thing, but like you can make some really good informed decisions, I think, from just like, why did you come to this site today?
I think that's the most powerful question that anyone can ask is understand
why.
But we talk about it all the time. I mean, you know me long enough, now that like when I speak, it's trying, like, I want to explain the why. If we make a change at the company, we tell the reason we're making this change, not just because, hey, Josh is, going to make this change and just do it anyways. Yeah. Like, we don't do that. That's not our philosophy. So it's the same idea as if we're going to engage with our customers, we want to understand the psychology behind it, understand, why did you come here? Why are you engaging in this brand? It could just be simple. I need to buy a backpack. It could be as simple as that, right? I happen to land on this particular brand, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's not the right one, but I think it's such a powerful question, especially in today's day and age, of understanding the why. And I think that people really forget that so simply. All right, future zero-party data. What does that look like, right? So we got email opt-ins, we got survey data, first party. So Lee, I'll throw it to you. What is the future of zero-party data?
I'm going to tie up one quick thread, and that is we often talk about quantitative data will tell you what happened. Qualitative data will tell you why it happened. And so I think that's a really important thing to know.
You're a data scientist. So
what you need to know. But as far as like the zero party data, I really think this is going to become a gold standard in terms of like, how do we reach customers, make sure that they're consensually giving us information, able to control their preferences and update things. And then we want to leverage that with the first party data that we can observe, like the size, color preferences, all that kind of stuff, what we see them browsing. And then, but let them tell us what they want and what they're really expecting from us. As far as, the future of it, according to, I just saw a Forrester report come out, the other week, and it says like 11% of companies are actually fully leveraging their customer data, and those that do are 2.5 more times likely to increase the lifetime value of their customers. And so it really does pay off in the numbers at the end of the day, but you've got to have enough data to really serve your customers, and then you've also got to create these really great user experiences for them.
It's funny, like when we tell our merchants, like, we need 3 months worth of data for us, like when we're taking over an email, or like we're email management or content management or even site management, it really is like 3 months worth of data is kind of like the bare minimum, because otherwise the sample size is just too small. But what I think is going to be really interesting is the companies that buy into this and put in the effort to ask their customers the why. I think they're gonna far excel over their competitors. Right?
Yeah. And I think when you're looking and forecasting into the future and predicting things, the larger data sets, you just have they get better over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So
I just add, Josh, sorry, I just add to that. Like the one thing I would say is make it easy for people to, this is me being from the UX side of it, make it easy for people to give you this data though, and make it a fun experience, like, the quizzes and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's going to be so much more likely, like, especially if everyone starts doing this, that will be the next thing, right? It's like, how do you differentiate how you're getting this information from your customers?
Well, I think what Lee shared was just like making sure that you actually show that there's a benefit from having the data, right? Like it can't just be like, "Oh, give me your data," and then like it doesn't do anything. It's like a very simple thing. It's like, instead of like, "Hi customer," instead of it being like, "Hi Josh," or "Hi Natalie," or "Hi Lee," right? Like very, 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 very layman example. But yeah, like people want to understand, like, what are you doing with the data and how's it going to benefit me? You walk into like Old Navy and you buy something at Old Navy or Gap, like they ask you for your email address. It's like, why? It's like, I'm not giving you that because I know you're going to spend it. Like I made the mistake once of doing it with Old Navy, and it was every day was just offer after offer after offer. And it was like, do you even know who I am? Like, do you like have you leveraged any of that data? You know my buying history. You know what I purchased, right?
So ridiculous.
Anyways, I know we're kind of running up on time, so we already talked a little bit about predicting customer lifetime value. So predictive analysis, 2 years long worth of data, strong data that decreases the distance between the customer and brand. So we want to make sure that we're marrying it all together, making sure we're bringing in experience that is of value. And kind of just to summarize, Katie, I know we're kind of coming up on time here. So really there's a holistic relationship between the design of your website and how you capture this data, right? Providing an immersive excellence in all touch points. So making it easy to capture, right? A survey. Lee gave a great example of a company that does this, but if you check it out, it's quite intensive, right? So unless you're really prepared to go through, like, I want the best shampoo and conditioner tailored to me, and I don't care about costs, and I just want the best of the best, fantastic. Most buyers are probably not going to go through that type of an experience, right? So make it simple, make it easy. Future design is personalization, right? Smaller segments, same thing with the micro influencers. Better your personalization, the more customer loyalty, 100%. And then the future of zero-party data capture will offer the most granular data sets and the shortest distance between you and your customers and brands. So making sure that you're asking those questions, making sure that you're, and again, explaining the why. I think for me, that is so important. When a brand asks me something, when I engage with them, I want to know what they're doing with my information. It's really important to me, right? Questions? Katie.
And actually, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up because we are out of time.
All right.
In our recap, we will be answering all questions that were brought to us during registration. So keep an eye out for that. That's about a week away. So those will be available in our blog, and just visit our website and you can find the answers to the questions that you guys have left here with us today. In addition, I know we didn't get into the weeds of everything because this is such a massive topic. So we are planning a phase 2 or a part 2 to this OnTap series, where we'll probably get a little bit more into the meat and potatoes of the data. So definitely tune into that. And then thank you for guys tuning in. We will be sending out a survey
if you complete the survey, you'll be entered in to win a free UX audit. So Natalie and her team will take a look at your site, give you some feedback and thoughts. It's actually fairly comprehensive. It's a lot more than you would expect. And then Tadpull is going to give away a gift basket as well. So thank you so much, Lee, for your support and just being here and sharing your knowledge with us, because
Thank you.
I learned a heck of a lot through this whole process, and I'm sure a lot of people did too. And we're looking forward to the next part as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
And if because it's on tap, you have to pick up your glass and you have to say either salut, l'chaim, cheers.
Yeah,
What?
that's great.
So salut, l'chaim, cheers.
Juice.
Thank you guys so much for
Yes.
tuning in. This has been fantastic, and tune in next time. Thanks a lot.